Hello everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar reviewing the DJI Matrice 300 for industrial inspection. My name is Marc Flamm, and I'm the Enterprise Sales and Support Manager at DSLR Pros. I'm happy to introduce today's expert panel. First up is Darshan Divakaran, an unmanned technology evangelist, entrepreneur, aviator, and keynote speaker with expertise in aviation development, flight operations, remote sensing, and program management. Darshan is the president of both Airavat LLC and AUVSI North Carolina. He has been recognized by Interdrone, Commercial UAV News, and Enterprise UAS as one of the top commercial drone visionaries. Hey, Darshan, you on?
Can you all hear me clearly?
Yep, I can hear you just fine. How's it going?
Sounds good. It sounds good here also. I'm doing really good. Thank you for having me in this session. I'm hoping to learn a lot myself, but at the same time, provide some insightful information on drones in the industrial applications and operations for state and local operations, everything. So, looking forward to the session.
Awesome, and thanks for joining us. Next up is Mike Amati from Jinko Solar. Mike is a sales application engineer with 15 years experience in the solar industry. He has deep expertise in renewable energy, a BS in mechanical engineering, and is an unmanned technology enthusiast. Hey, Mike, how's it going?
Very good. Thank you, Mark, for inviting me along. Yeah, I like what Darshan said. Also very interested in what we've got lined up this morning or this afternoon, depending upon where you are in the country. And again, just here to add some insight to those attending of how this kind of technology is beneficial to the solar and renewable industry.
Got it. Well, thanks for joining us, Mike. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Also joining is our friend Derrick Ward. Derrick is the owner-operator of Hotshots Aerial Photography, a successful drone service business offering high-resolution photography, thermography, and mapping services. He's also the Director of Public Safety Engagement at Enterprise UAS. Derrick is located in Arizona and also in Los Angeles, so if you're a commercial operator working in the Southwest, reach out and say hi. Hey, Derrick, you on?
Yeah, Mark, thanks again for having us. I'm excited to be with you and Darshan and Mike. This is some exciting technology that's come out with the M300, and I can't wait to dig in.
All right, thanks. And lastly, my name is Marc Flamm. I'm the Enterprise Sales and Support Manager at DSLR Pros. I've been in the commercial drone industry since 2014 when joining DJI as their Enterprise Support Manager. I'm an FAA Part 107 remote pilot, Level 1 thermographer, aerial thermography expert, and as always, happy to be here today. All right, I want to take a moment and highlight Airavat LLC. Airavat provides UAS program management and training support to commercial companies and government agencies. Darshan, the president of Airavat, currently serves on boards and committees of national organizations like TRB, UAST, AUVSI, and NFPA, which create safety standards and best practices for unmanned aviation. Darshan, is there anything I missed? Anything you want to add or let us know about Airavat?
No, that's good information, and we are focused on education, and our main aim is to standardize education nationally. So we're working with agencies, organizations, and entities in all states.
All right, well, thank you very much. I know you guys have already made a big impact.
Thank you.
And for anyone unfamiliar, Jinko Solar is the world's largest solar panel manufacturer. Mike, can you tell us a little bit about Jinko and what the reason Jinko is starting to utilize drones?
Sure. So like you had said, Jinko is the world's largest module manufacturer globally. We were established back in 2006 in our Shanghai corporate office location. We've got multiple factories across the country or across the world. We deliver products to over 100 countries globally. And the reason why we're looking into aerial drones and so forth is just for peace of mind for us, as well as for our customers. It's an additional layer of quality control and check to make sure and ensure that our product is still performing as it should be. And just that additional layer of confidence for our customers.
Got it. And thank you, Jinko, for joining us today. All right, a real quick introduction about us. Established in 2012, DSLR Pros has been assisting industrial and agricultural service providers to launch and scale their own drone programs. We offer technical support, training classes, repair services, and wholesale distribution. We're an authorized DJI, Pix4D, FLIR, MicaSense, and SenseFly partner and are located in Southern California. And a couple quick notes about today's webinar. This webinar is being recorded and we'll share the recording with everyone afterwards. We encourage you to ask questions in the question panel throughout the webinar. We have a great panel today with thought leaders from the commercial UAS industry, so if you have questions, just let us know. And a quick look at the agenda. We'll talk about some of the technical capabilities of the brand new DJI Matrice 300. We'll look at the safety and reliability features. We'll discuss how we can use this technology for industrial inspections, and then finish off with a Q&A with our panel. Alrighty, first up, let's review the technical capabilities of this new aircraft. So with only the FPV camera, the flight time is 55 minutes. With the zoom in thermal camera installed, the flight time is 36 minutes. And for comparison, the M200, the predecessor to the M300, had a 15-minute flight time with a similar setup, so 21-minute increase. And now we're looking at the new and much needed battery charging station. This case can charge a set of batteries in 60 minutes and automatically switch to the next set when ready. With the new batteries and rapid charging case, DJI has now enabled non-stop continuous flight. What that means is if you have 4 sets of batteries, by the time your last battery is drained, your first battery is recharged, allowing you to fly continuously. So Darshan, I'll start with you. What are some situations in where continuous operations are beneficial?
Sure. One of the biggest one, when I was in my role with Department of Transportation was disaster response. We had to do operations where we had limited time, or sometimes we had a limited window of opportunity to do some flights. And one of the biggest issue comes up is that charging these batteries, and those who have been using drones and the early models of the aircrafts and stuff would realize the hassle of getting it charged and doing a continuous operation. But also to look at when we do large scale operations wherein we are doing corridor mapping and stuff, that's like 16, 20 miles sometimes minimum routes which we map. And we have done that past with Phantoms and other aircrafts which, we had to change battery regularly, stop and charge, and this whole operation could take a whole day to do, even the next day. And with features like this where we can continuously run operations, I think you would reduce the time by half or even less than that.
Wow. Yeah, I could see that, allowing the drone to do one long continuous mission instead of breaking it up into 3 or 4 missions with battery swaps really improves the efficiency. And you also hit on something interesting about sometimes you're presented a limited window. And I know that's really relevant to solar, especially. And Mike, I'm curious, what are your thoughts there? But the window for an optimal solar inspection is also pretty tight. So you can't be tied down by battery charging times and things like that. Mike, what are your thoughts there?
No, yeah, basically you hit the nail right on the head. So when we are scanning large solar fields, and when I say large solar fields, we're talking, hundreds and hundreds of megawatts. What does that mean to, the average person? You're talking, hundreds of thousands of solar modules, maybe even in some cases millions of modules. And when we are scanning using the thermal cameras, we have to ensure that the sun irradiance is above a certain threshold. In this case, it would be a minimum of 600 watts per square meter. That's basically the intensity of the sun. And so, like Darshan said, it's a limited opportunity of when we will have that bright of sunlight throughout the day. So we need to ensure that when the sun is at its optimal, brightness or its irradiance, we need to make sure that those batteries are running fully, and we can't be tied down to lost batteries here or there. Otherwise, we'd have to move into day number 2 or day number 3 or even maybe 4 days of scanning, because some of these sites are just so large. So having this ability would be very, very beneficial.
Yeah, when you get into
just to add in, like what Mike said exactly, there's been situations wherein we had to, after a whole day of operation, we realized that the data that we got, because of different cloud cover and everything, cannot be used, we have to do the whole operations all over again. So cloud cover plays a big role in these type of operations. And if you are waiting, charging batteries the whole afternoon and stuff like that, you're going to have continuous days of the same flight being done to actually get the data you need.
Yeah, wow, that's actually a really interesting point I never even considered. But yeah, cloud coverage changes so much. So if you're doing one of these huge missions with 5 battery changes that takes all day, you're going to get wildly different lighting conditions throughout the day. But if you're able to use the longer flight time and now do this in less battery changes and the overall duration is shorter, you'll just get better results simply because the sun has moved less position in the sky. That's a great part. I never really thought about that. All right, next we're going to take a look at the M300 transmission range. With a 9.3 mile max range, it's basically double the range of any other DJI drone, double like a Phantom or Mavic or Inspire. It also has 1080 HD image transmission. So with these increased flight times and range specs, DJI is really putting some distance between the M300 and their other systems. So what this means is for industrial applications, you can inspect more assets per flight, which means more assets per day, which helps increase your overall efficiency. So Derrick, what are your thoughts on the 9-mile range?
Well, the industry's been asking for a long time for longer flight times. And so now we have a little bit of that added on. And now to be able to extend out to up to 9 miles, obviously we're not going to do that unless we have a waiver. But the other technical issue here is that we're able to actually pass this off to a different pilot, and we'll talk about that more later. But it just increases our capability in doing inspections, whether it be pipelines or wind turbines or whatever that might be. So we're going to do more of an inspection with in a lot less time because we're not landing and reloading batteries and passing the aircraft off to another pilot. So just increases our efficiency.
Gotcha. Yeah, good point. And you do make a good point, which is nine miles is going to put you beyond visual line of sight, most likely or most certainly. But another way to look at it is if you're doing a shorter range flight, let's say like a 2-mile flight, but it's in a congested area. Now with this increased overpowered video transmission range, you know that it'll really, it'll do great in even more congested areas because it's set to be so powerful.
And that's what's so awesome about this unit is all the redundancies that are in this, and we'll talk about that also. But to have that continuous transmission without any interference, without any magnetic interference, and to be able to do that in some of these strenuous environments is key. And so that makes it that much more valuable.
Yeah, I think I'd like to add to that as well. You hit the nail on the head there. For the solar fields, these could be a couple miles in width and in length, but we've got a lot of electrical devices. You've got substations, you've got DC to AC inverters, which could be sending off some sort of electrical signals, potentially interfering with the transmission. So even though we may only be a mile or 2 or 3 at most in some cases, having that 3x of what we would be traveling, that type of transmission rate is going to be helpful for us as well in the solar industry.
Yeah, well said, Mike. That's what I was trying to communicate. Well said. That's what it's all about there. All right, now we're going to look at the various payloads and the takeoff weight. The M300 supports the new H20 series. It supports the Z30 and the XT2. And you can see it supports various payload configurations, including top mount. I don't know, Darshan, do you have any thoughts on top mount, maybe for like inspecting infrastructure, any times where you've seen this technology used?
Sure. Yeah. I remember a couple of years back when there was no top mount camera, we were discussing on how we could do bridge inspections. Especially Department of Transportations nationally, they are all maintaining various infrastructure. So bridges, play a big role wherein you can get under the belly of the bridge and take pictures, take video. And with the top mount, it makes it easy. Yes, the size of the aircraft will also matter, but this is where it's better than having nothing is to have something. And I think that's where one of the big applications for that will fall into. But also I've seen a lot of discussions on folks who are operating in shipyards and stuff. They have a lot of infrastructure and ships, and also in addition ships and cargo that they have to get inspected, and a lot of times they have to go under certain areas, and that's done manually, and using a camera in hand, or so yeah, this is where a solution of having a drone with a top mount makes it easy.
Yeah, I could definitely see that as well. And you
Yeah,
can
Mark,
see, yeah, Derrick.
I was going to say also, yeah, in commercial buildings, to be able to do the underside of inspection on certain structures, such as an airplane hangar and different things, where they have to have that information, gathering the photos or the thermal imaging, you can do it with this camera underneath eaves or in these commercial buildings too. So it makes it that much easier.
Yeah, definitely. I could see, like, for like even roofs, like being able to take a peek up and look up at the facade, or for like telecommunication towers, just being able to look up and see the bottom side of different components. So I'm sure people will find different ways to deploy this. And it is also worth noting that um, you can use the M300 and the H20, and then if you have an XT2 from your Matrice 200, you could use that. If you have the Spotlight, you can also use that. So there's some different payload configurations, as you can see on this slide here. Alrighty, now we're going to look at the technical capabilities of the new cameras. DJI has introduced a ton of new features with this camera, so I'm excited to get into it with you guys. Up first is the H20, which is a zoom camera, plus a wide angle camera, plus a laser rangefinder, all in one. The primary sensor is 20 megapixels, which is very high resolution. For context, the Z30 is 2 megapixels and the X5S is 21 megapixels. Next, we'll look at the zoom range. The H20 is capable of a 23 times hybrid optical zoom. That's based on going from the wide angle 24 millimeter lens to the end of the zoom lens, which is 556 millimeters. So, okay, so next is the H20T. Is the same, but it also has the thermal camera. And first, thermal is the ability to detect emitted heat. This allows you to measure temperatures, check for temperature anomalies, see in total darkness, see through smoke, and a wide range of other applications. This thermal camera is a 640 resolution, 30 frames per second radiometric sensor with a 13 millimeter lens. So very similar specs to what you'd see on the XT or XT2. And just to share, radiometric refers to the ability to extract and store temperature data from every pixel in the image, as opposed to just viewing the thermal image on the monitor. This is a really important feature for industrial applications that other thermal cameras may or may not have. Another new feature we're seeing here is the laser rangefinder, which allows operators to get an accurate distance between the drone and a target. This is good for taking measurements, but it's also good just to ensure that you're close enough to a target for the inspection. And it also helps power some of the new smart AI features that we're going to see later on in the deck. So we've got wide angle camera, zoom camera, laser rangefinder, and a 640 thermal camera, all in one hybrid payload. So Mike, I'll start with you. What are your thoughts on the zoom or the thermal? How do you see Jinko or other companies in the solar industry using these sensors?
Well, first of all, I can't talk right now. When we are flying over the fields here, we're probably at an altitude of, at maximum 100 feet, maybe even 150 tops. And so when we're trying to, scan these sites, we want to get as detail oriented as possible down to maybe even, a cell. And a single cell on a module is only a couple inches wide. And to have that ability to, be able to pinpoint what the individual pixels are at that type of resolution, and also follow, there is an IEC standard when doing solar scans through an aerial drone. Having this resolution, this frame rate, all of that locked into one small little package is really going to be beneficial for identifying any anomalies that could be present out in the field.
Yeah, and we already know that thermal is commonly being used in the solar industry as it is. So now we've got that thermal camera plus all these other sensors bundled into it together, so to provide a lot of different versatility. And Derrick, as a service provider working in different industries, you've got to love this versatility. What are your thoughts?
Well, first off, I just love the camera because it has all these different capabilities all in one. But, as Mike knows, and I'm sure Roshan also, if you're doing a thermal inspection, it's important that you have that 640, 520 resolution. The whole issue of doing these inspections with a drone is to save on time and money, and false anomalies are happening pretty often So by having the 640-520 thermal camera, we're going to eliminate a lot of those false anomalies. And then to have a high-res visual camera, like the zoom camera at 20 megapixels, you need that too when you're doing inspections, so that you can take a visual and the thermal of an anomaly. And then also with the same system, we're able to pinpoint where these anomalies are, and we can actually put a location. So you get a longitude, a latitude of that issue. Now ground crews can come in and they can re-inspect and take care of those panels of those issues that come up. So you have an all-in-one solution and capable of doing a tremendous amount of work in a short period of time. And by the way, we're in the air a lot longer too, so it's just going to increase our workflow.
Yeah, and you mentioned something interesting, like with the 640 resolution is really important for, critical inspections, because you're going to get more resolution. You'll have a better idea of what you're looking at, easier to identify an anomaly versus maybe like a reflection, like you were saying. There's a lot of different factors to look at when considering thermal cameras, like the resolution, like is it radiometric, things like that. So make sure you're looking at all the different specs, because not all thermal cameras are created equal. And
Mark,
Darshan, yeah, Derrick, yes.
Just on that point, you're right about what you just said. Not all thermal cameras are created equal. I've seen the H20T, I'm sorry, at 150 feet, and the clarity of that camera is amazing. It's really, really good, and so it's just fantastic what you can actually do with it.
Yeah, I'm going to show a photo in a couple of slides that shows the clarity of the thermal camera, even side by side next to other 640 resolution thermal cameras. The clarity is really high. So, I mean, great job DJI. It's the clarity, the definition is really high on this thermal camera, and I'll show an example of just that.
Yeah, one other thing I wanted to just comment before we move on to the next slide was having all of that into one package and being able to flip-flop from one sensor to the other. You could be scanning the site, you pick up an anomaly, and it could be a false positive. And so being able to switch over to the zoom and getting, pinpoint precision on that and see, okay, is it, some type of residue that's on the module that's creating the heat signature, or is there, is the module shattered, something hit it, golf ball, what have you. Just any sort of false positive to verify it. Even if you were to tag it for your team to come back and look at it, you actually are saving that time from having to send the crews out to inspect that module, in close proximity. By having that zoom capability, you're saving all that time and effort by not having to send that crew out there to, check it firsthand.
Yeah, that's a great point. You may see an anomaly with a thermal camera, and you might even have an idea, oh, this is debris or this is vegetation. But then switching to the high-powered zoom, now you can confirm what is the source of the debris or exactly what type of vegetation we're looking at, and saving a trip out there. So just to further help get the return on your investment, because you're able to get all the necessary imagery you need to make a decision. So that's a great point there.
Precisely.
And yeah, lastly, Darshan, I know you haven't gotten your hands on this camera just yet, but any thoughts on the sensors or how different infrastructure inspectors will be able to deploy this technology to help reduce their inspection time?
Yeah, absolutely. I can give three use cases which not a lot of people may be aware about, and how it fits in, because we have done it in when we had our aircrafts, but it had only one specific sensor for the use. So take for example, the laser rangefinder. Now, airport inspections. So currently, FAA regulations require updated measurements of runway obstructions at an airfield, that is, basically your tree lines, buildings, and other stuff. So every 2 years, it is part of a standardized, I believe it's FAA 5010 inspection. So currently, these obstructions must be measured using conventional surveying equipment and mathematical calculations, which is, it's time consuming. It takes half a day to even sometime the next day, depending on how big the runway is or how big the airports are. So the data on the obstruction height and location has to be available to the pilots, because this is to familiarize themselves with the condition of the airport. So this inspection has to be done, and airport inspectors use measuring handheld tools and stuff to do it. So this is where a technology like this, if it's smartly integrated, could help airport inspections. And at the same time, in the other inspections, like even in bridge inspection, this is where thermal and rangefinder both are applicable. Even zoom, I would say, is applicable to bridge inspections, because using thermal you can detect cracks and stuff. So altogether you have this use case. And then traffic monitoring, be it in the public safety side or in the state and local side during disaster response and everything. A lot of times you don't need to fly all the way to the location to actually get the data in. You could just launch it closer to your base and zoom into these locations that are nearby and give live updates. And if you have multiple of these aircrafts in different, so say for example, Department of Transportation's, their offices are scattered all around the state. If they have some of these things, they don't really need to fly miles away to look at the condition, or they need their pilots to drive in harsh weather. They have zoom capability and they could use it. So a lot of uses, and having all this in one package makes it even more useful for people in the field.
Yeah, and I think one thing people don't always consider is how having the high-powered zoom makes your entire operation a lot safer, because you don't need to fly up onto subjects and really, get close to them and start navigating and doing a lot of flying around. You can park the drone somewhere safe. We have good line of sight, and then use the zoom camera to do more of the inspecting work instead of having to fly so close to subjects. So it really does help simplify missions as well as improve the safety.
True.
All right, the new user interface to the M300 makes it easy to switch between all these different payloads. Like we've all been saying, the ability to have wide angle, zoom, thermal is really beneficial. And I'm gonna just show a short video of how we can switch between these different payloads so easily. So now we're on the zoom camera. Now we switch to the wide camera. Now we switch to the thermal camera and back to the zoom camera. So you can see just by clicking these buttons on the left side of the app, you can switch between one interface to the next. All right, here's a series of images all taken from the same position, showing the different views you can get from this camera. So the first image is the wide image. Now we're looking at the full optical zoom. So this is a 20 megapixel image, no digital zoom applied, full optical zoom. Now the full digital zoom. Now the wide angle and full digital zoom side by side for perspective. And I'm up at around 100 feet and we're reading that tiny little text there. So really impressive zoom technology. And then lastly, here's the thermal image. And again, this is a 640 resolution radiometric thermal sensor. And one thing I've noticed, and Derrick was talking about it earlier as well, it's very sharp and very high clarity. I don't think anyone can deny that. Like if you look at the center towards the bottom there, you can really see all the cracks in the pavement. I don't know how clean it looks going through the webinar, but the original image is really high clarity, so you're getting a ton of detail out of it.
It's high clarity, Mark, and also the fact that we are actually getting more pallets that we can set with this airframe or this camera. So there's many other pallets that we're able to set along with the isotherms, makes it awesome.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I'm gonna just use that as a reminder to everybody. DSLR Pros recently released a new video on our YouTube channel about how to use DJI thermal analysis tool. It's a little tutorial video that'll walk you through taking your thermal image and doing, changing palettes like Derrick's mentioning, applying measurements and spot checks. So make sure to check out our YouTube channel and you can see some examples of what Derrick's talking about with applying different palettes and the versatility of this camera. All right, here's another sample shot from a similar 640 resolution thermal camera. Mike and I spotted this problem a few months ago while inspecting a set of panels on a commercial building in Los Angeles. Mike, you want to explain what we could be looking at here?
Sure. So we've got a bunch of solar panels on a commercial rooftop. These modules are on a ballasted system, roughly about 5 to 10 degrees tilt facing south. And what caught my attention was these, quote unquote 10, 15 modules. I don't remember what the head count is, but you can see how there's a block of modules that are a lot warmer than the others. And so I said there's something definitely suspicious about these lit up modules in contrast to its neighboring modules. And so what I'm assuming is wrong here is that this entire string of modules is offline. And that's the reason for the elevated temperatures that we're seeing here. One other thing I want to point out is if you look to the modules just north of that blue square box, I guess that might be a skylight, you can see there's, it looks like two other yellow signatures or warm signatures. So that could either be, you know, something's wrong with those individual cells, or it could be some residue. I don't recall. I don't know if you've got an RGB image of that, but there might be something wrong with that module as well. Again, very, very clear image of what is going on here. One thing I do want to point out is on the very southern edge row of modules, how you can see that's all lit up on the bottom of those modules. That's nothing is wrong there. That's probably just reflected light or heat from the actual roof membrane. So there's nothing wrong with the modules there, but you can see that the bottom edge of the modules are slightly warmer than the top half. That's probably because the modules at that location are closer to the rooftop, the membrane of the roof. So it's those cells in the modules there are probably warmer than the others at the top side. Top side modules or top side cells are you know, getting convection cooling, so that's why they're much cooler.
Got it. Thanks for sharing there. And look, it is important to understand what might be like a false positive, you know, having the understanding of what Mike's saying here to understand that those hotspots on the bottom, that's not necessarily a problem. That could just be reflections, you know. That's where training is really important. With thermal, the last thing you want to do is, you know, say everybody stop, exit the building, we got a big problem if it turns out you're just looking at a reflection. And then also just to share, Mike and I did this inspection and it was around like 1 or 2 p.m. I mean, it took us like 15 minutes to see this hotspot on the monitor. We immediately saw that something was going on. That didn't involve anybody getting up on the roof or anything. It was really quick, really safe, and really effective. So definitely this thermal technology is proven for the solar industry, and here's a great example of it. So DJI has opened up the Matrice series to partner payloads. So I just want to take a minute and show some of these payloads here. Like we have the spotlight, the multispectral sensor, the laser methane detector, and a few other ones. You know, Derrick, anything catch your eye here? Anything you see that you could be using?
Yeah, the spotlight to me is of a great value when you're using the thermal camera supposedly at night, and you also want to get a visual photo of something by having that spotlight alongside. The H20i is going to, you know, help you out quite a bit in lots of different scenarios, whether it's public safety or industrial. So I like that. There's a lot of good stuff here, and it's nice to be able to interchange the payloads.
Yeah, I agree. I see that 50mm thermal imaging sensor being really beneficial for the power line industry, so you can get nice detailed imagery without having to get too close to the subject. Alrighty, moving along, we'll talk about some of the safety features. And one thing I want to say is a key factor between prosumer drones like the Inspire and the Mavics versus the Matrice are some of these safety and redundancy features. By investing in industrial grade equipment, you know, the stuff you can't buy at Walmart, you can really reduce your liability. And we'll take a look at exactly what that means. So the first safety feature is the Matrice 300 has 6-way omnidirectional obstacle avoidance. So if you're flying in complex environments like power line, windmills, or other infrastructure inspections, you'll appreciate the extra safety here. This is also a big improvement from the Matrice 200, which featured front, top, and bottom obstacle avoidance only. Another improvement is the obstacle avoidance sensor range is now customizable. So if you're flying in tight areas, you can reduce the thresholds rather than just disable the sensors. So anyone who's flown with Derrick knows he doesn't want any computers pumping the brakes on him. Derrick, are you excited to test out this customizable sensor?
Oh, absolutely. And you said something that's really important. You know, you need to get in tight or close to something. You need to turn those sensors off. Otherwise, your drone's bouncing off whatever it is you're trying to get close to. So to be able to adjust that, and instead of turning it off, just increases your safety. You know, you got 2 vision sensors on each side and 2 infrared sensors on each side. So you got a lot of redundancy built in and the capability of this drone to keep you safe and to decrease your liability. And that's what we're looking for when we're out there doing this stuff. But I like the fact that you can adjust those sensors rather than turning them off.
Yeah, I think that's going to be huge because I know a lot of people were disabling the sensors for certain types of inspections, and the goal is we want to stay as safe as possible. So some other things we have are top and bottom auxiliary lights. These are going to help those sensors perform better in low light or shadowy conditions. And we have top and bottom anti-collision beacons. So Darshan, I know you come from a manned aviation background. Do you want to just quickly explain what those anti-collision beacons are all about?
Absolutely. Having the beacons would give you, especially in the night, one thing is part of your requirement, your waiver. When you apply for the waiver, you need to have your lights. But at the same time, it gives situational awareness to the drone operator, to the people around, that there is a drone, in that vicinity. It takes a few seconds for people to realize it's a drone, but having a beacon on it will make a lot of difference there. So it's for situational awareness, both from a pilot perspective, also from an individual's perspective who is either below the aircraft in some way or spots it and stuff like that. So in the manned aviation side, we have that. It also gives the whole direction side also, which is right, which is left, because people who operate drones in the night or even manned aircraft as such, a lot of times when you see an approaching aircraft, you don't know which is what. Sometimes is the aircraft moving away from you or coming close to you or to the left or right. So with these lights, you will have a better understanding of your aircraft.
Yeah, and you make a good point there. A lot of people don't realize the red and green lights on your DJI drone are designed to help you with the orientation. So of course you can use the app and the map view and the radar and the compass to figure out your orientation, or you can just press return to home. But let's say the app were to freeze or whatever, you should be able to look at those red and green lights to understand your orientation as well. And that's true if you have a Spark all the way up to Matrice 300. So great point there.
And let me tell you, no matter how much training you have, when you're in a situation of immediate response, it is, when we do our training with folks and all, we make them suddenly, return back to home or tell us where they're positioned. And 90% of the time, the lights is what the only way for them to understand. So they have to memorize that. That is red, and this thing. So that's where training and when having these lights makes it a lot different. And in the manned world, that's what keeps us safe, because if you're operating in the night, first of all, you have to differentiate between a star and a aircraft, and a lot of times you lose sight of an aircraft. If you blink, you may even lose sight of the aircraft, and that's where these lights get you back in your eyesight focus and all.
Yeah, and one thing I've seen, Derrick. Yeah, Derrick, go ahead. I was just gonna.
Yeah, I was just going to say, the other advantage to that is if you're looking at a different aircraft, whether it's a manned aircraft or a unmanned aircraft, if that vehicle's getting closer to you or further away just based on the size and orientation of those lights. It's important not just for the unmanned aircraft, but if you happen to see a manned aircraft in your vicinity and you need to ground your aircraft, you can see whether or not it's flying away from you or coming toward you. So it's important to know.
Yeah, good point. And one thing I'll add, I like to use those auxiliary lights even during the anti-collision lights, even during the day, because it gives you a little bit more line of sight range. Like sometimes you can lose track of the aircraft on a bright sunny day. Those beacons kind of help you keep an eye on it. So just a nice to have feature. All right, now we're going to take a look at the M300 Ingress Protection rating. The M300 has an IP45 rating. So the first number, 4, refers to protections against solids like dust and debris. The second number, 5, refers to protection against water. So 5 is defined as being able to withstand jets of water from all sides. So basically this means you can keep flying even in a heavy rain, rated at up to 100 millimeters per 24 hours. So here's just showing what that looks like. So Matrice 200 is IP43 rated, Matrice 300 IP45 rated. The difference here is that the rating of 3 protects against downward sprays of water at a 60-degree angle. 5 protects against jets of water from any angle. So even though the Matrice 200 was had a waterproof rating. We still did hear complaints of people saying if it was like a really windy day and the rain was kind of coming in sideways, or if they were trying to fly fast and the drone was at an increased pitch angle, water could still get in because it was only protecting against downward sprays of water at a 60-degree angle. But the M300 is protected against water from 360 degrees. Even if it were to get splashed from the bottom, it's sealed. So this is just adding to the safety and reliability of this aircraft. So Darshan, I know you've supported some critical UAS missions in the past. Can you share some of the weather challenges that you've run into, if you're able to?
Sure. I'll take an example of non-critical situations where we also have issues. Is when we do we do operations of underwater vegetation mapping, and those are in coastal areas where we're operating from a boat and everything. So when you're operating from boat, there's always situations wherein water is going to play some sort of a role in when it comes down to land, or even the moisture level and stuff like that. It impacts the aircraft. So so that is where having this sort of protection is important. But at the same time, when during disasters, it takes state of North Carolina. We are hit by hurricanes. Hurricane season, and it depends on how big the or how the extent of the hurricane. But there are operations wherein we are operating after the hurricane, and it's sunny, but at the same time it's North Carolina, so suddenly it rains, and you're doing an emergency response operation wherein you are giving live updates to certain entities, and in these sort of situations you're not going to immediately suspend the operation and just come down because you suspect it's going to rain, because there's clouds over. So you have to wait till the point it actually rains so that you either want to stop the operations or not. And if it's a light drizzle, which is a passing by, we have to make sure that the operations are still on. So this is where having something like this, having this protection makes a lot of difference. And after our Hurricane Florence and Hurricane Dorian response in North Carolina, one of the biggest study that came out for us was that we need more weather protected technology, and I think this answers a lot of those questions.
Yeah, well said. Thank you. Okay, now we're looking at the new UAV health management system. First, we have the health status monitoring. This provides an overview of the status of all the major components. Flight data management. This records the flight data and provides maintenance suggestions accordingly. Flight log management allows you to export your flight records. Firmware management manages the various firmware versions. Error records and troubleshooting guidelines help provide support if you're out in the field. So this is a great new dashboard that DJI is adding to the app to help you manage the health of your system. So if you're tasked with managing a fleet and you need some way to track flight hours between different crafts, this is a simple solution. Also to add, the ability to minimize downtime for basic troubleshooting issues is crucial. Having troubleshooting guidelines available, even in remote locations, can help minimize downtimes that your crew might experience. So Mike, any thoughts here? I know that Jinko is starting to build up a fleet. Do you plan on utilizing the system to keep track of all your assets?
Yeah, I think one of the easiest ones to address would just be the multiple sites that we would be covering, and keeping track of that, the frequency as to when the missions were conducted. I think that would be very helpful. I know that we were talking about reliability and uptime is of importance, specifically with solar. Our window of opportunity to do these scans is somewhat limited based on the environmental conditions. So having that health feature to let me know, or let the pilots know how the aircraft is performing beforehand, and do any preventative maintenance, I think would be very beneficial, so that we don't have an oops out in the field and we've just lost an hour, 2 hours of potential flight time.
Yeah, I think that's going to be key. I mean, if you have a crew out in a remote location and they miss their inspection window, that could be very costly. So DJI is trying to help us, avoid any unnecessary downtime. And just by having insight into the health of all the components of your system is just going to help you operate more safely and more reliably. All right, now we're going to look at some more safety and redundancy features. The M300 has a dual IMU, barometer, compass, and RTK antennas, as well as dual batteries. This provides redundant components for improved reliability. This is important, and like I said earlier, is a key differential between consumer and industrial grade drones because the redundancy can reduce the liability to your organization. We also have the all-new advanced dual control, which allows you to change pilots mid-flight. So we're going to get into advanced dual control a little on later, but Derrick, I know you've got hundreds of flight hours. Do you want to just take a second and explain why these reliability and redundancy features are so important?
Yeah, Mark. So, this isn't something that really should need to be explained because redundancy is extremely important. And as Darshan, I'm sorry, knows, in manned aircraft, we have redundancy built in every area, right? It's very, very important. So now we're bringing this aircraft into some of these extreme environments with magnetic interference, with other issues that occur. And by having, the dual IMU, the dual barometer, compass, all these different things tacked onto one drone, including the vision avoidance systems that are on it, it just makes our job safer. It makes the program, if you have for an industrial program, it makes it safer, and you'll end up with a successful program by having these safety measures in place.
Well said. So other redundancy features include the new 3-propeller emergency landing, which is a fail-safe in case one motor or propeller fails. So if you're out there flying, an Inspire 2 and a prop fails, it'll be catastrophic. Whereas the M300 can recover and then slowly reduce altitude for a semi-controlled landing. And I'm going to show a video of that next. It's a pretty impressive feature. We also have the ADS-B receiver, which allows pilots to see other manned aircrafts in the area. And keep in mind that the drone pilot will see manned aircraft, but manned aircraft will not be able to see your Matrice. So it's a receiver only. And the Matrice 300 has a wide FPV camera, which is great for the pilot to quickly switch back to anytime they just need a forward-facing camera. So if you have your H20T and you're looking at a zoomed-in image and it's pointed off to the side, and you just want to really quickly go back to a forward-facing camera, the FPV cam will always be there, will always be facing forward. So that's a great safety feature as well. And now we're going to take a look at the 3-propeller emergency landing. This allows you to maintain control of the aircraft in the event of a motor malfunction. So you can see it drops some altitude and then sort of enters into a controlled spin. And now the pilot is sort of pushing it towards a safe area for the controlled landing. And I think if this happens, you have a very short window to start to bring it down because those other 3 motors are going to rev up as fast as they can. But it's definitely better than it just tumbling out of the sky. So that of all the safety features we talked about, this could be the one that reduces your liability the most.
Yeah, and one thing I want to add to that, Mark, is when we're doing these scans in the solar fields, we've got hundreds of thousands of solar panels across the the site, and even though the cost of a solar panel is not all that too terrible, I think it's the downstream effect, which is a higher issue, which is these systems, these solar systems, have the ability to be producing upwards of 1500 volts DC, and to have one of these drones accidentally crash into a solar panel could be catastrophic. Of course, not only for the drone, but for the neighboring panels. We could have an arc, there could be a fire, there could be something catastrophic. So to be able to have that ability to have some sort of control of that drone and land it in a safe area, I think is truly beneficial as a safety concern when scanning some of these solar fields.
Yeah, great point. So now we're going to take a look at some additional safety and security features, more on the software side now. Some notable features are, first off, is DJI has had geofencing in their drones for years now. Geofencing is the ability to lock off restricted areas like airports or military bases. It also has altitude limitations, so you can ensure all the members of your team are flying in compliance. AES 256 encryption mode to protect your data transmission, as well as the DJI Enterprise crafts have local data mode, which is like a security or privacy mode that, according to DJI, prevents the drone from sending or receiving any data over the internet. So these will all help provide additional assurance if you're operating in sensitive areas. Okay, next we're looking at the new autonomous features. There are several new features being introduced with this aircraft, and they can all help make routine inspections simpler and safer. First, we're going to look at the smart inspection features. What's exciting here is we're relying less on a skilled pilot or a flight team to successfully navigate a complex environment repeatedly, and more on the smart AI features. So for challenging inspections, a skilled pilot familiar with the asset could perform the initial inspection. And once the initial flight is completed and the flight path and the data set have been verified, the inspection can be automatically repeated by a less skilled operator with less risk and the same accuracy. So this is really exciting and is going to make these inspections more accessible. And thank you to Darshan for having me on the AUVSI North Carolina Let's Talk Drones session last Friday, where we got into a little bit about using smart inspection features to make industrial inspections more accessible. So thanks again for having me on there. I enjoyed that conversation as well.
You're welcome.
Yeah, so now we'll look at that smart inspection in detail. So to achieve this more accessible inspection workflow, first we have the upgraded waypoints. This allows you to plan a complex mission in advance by setting up to 65,000 consecutive actions. And waypoints are nothing new, but the ability to enter such a large quantity is very powerful. The Matrice 300 now also supports bank turns and more dynamic flight routes, which helps cover more acreage with less time and battery. Another thing to mention, POI or orbit mode is now also supported in the waypoints, which is huge for the telecommunications inspections. And lastly, there's also support for third-party payloads like the multispectral sensor and the other partner payloads that we were looking at earlier. And now we have the live mission recording. Live mission recording is a great feature to simplify complex inspections. After one manual flight, a waypoint inspection mission can be created and stored and then repeated for automated missions later. So that's what I was getting at earlier, where maybe a skilled team does the initial inspection and then it can be handed off to other team members to repeat. So, Derrick, from a drone service standpoint, how important is consistency? How important is it to deliver the same results over the course of an inspection period?
Well, that's how you're going to find anomalies or something that's different or wrong with whatever it is you're inspecting. And, the ability to do progress reports and continue to fly a specific area or monitor the same cell tower or the same power line on an ongoing basis is going to be extremely important. And to have the obstacle avoidance engaged while this is happening makes that flight a safer flight. And now also you can have other inspectors that are transmitting that information as the drone's flying, and they can be invested in looking and calculating what these anomalies are or whether or not there's problems. So you have a lot of different things going on at the same time to have a successful mission or inspection, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I agree. And Darshan, do you see this being valuable for infrastructure inspection?
Absolutely. All the features that you just mentioned is the needs that we have during disaster response. So we have pre-mission planning and post-mission, operations also. So when you mentioned about the feature where the initial team could get mapped the location, the waypoint setup, and the flight mission setup, and then the other team goes back and flies. It makes a big difference because we based on the data from pre-mission and post-mission, it helps us plan, repairs. As a state agency, you can plan repairs. You can plan evacuation routes. When you find those pre and post-mission data. So instead of having, if you have pre-mission waypoints and all recorded and stuff, any team can go and just fly that same location and give us the data in real time and stuff. So in disaster response with DOTs and state and local agencies, this is going to be a game changer.
Yeah, definitely.
Hey,
I agree. Yeah, Derrick.
Mark, let me kick in something else. So a lot of these power line inspections, one of the things they're looking for are trees or overgrowth in a specific area that may interfere, or branches that may interfere with these power lines and shut down a complete city, right? So they'll fly this drone all the way down the line of these power lines just to do an inspection on the growth that is near the power line. And by being able to continue doing that same inspection over and over whether it's annually or every 6 months or every 3 months, without having to reprogram is valuable, and you're going to be able to complete those inspections each time to see the differences and the progress of growth of those plants that are near those power lines.
Yeah, good point. And just a couple of things that I want to quickly add that you guys kind of inspired me to pile on here. One is having baseline imagery is so key, especially when it comes to thermal. If you start off with baseline imagery and then let's say a storm rolls through, and then you can compare the post-storm imagery to the baseline imagery, that's going to make that image so much more valuable. And the guys that are out there doing insurance claims for roofing companies, they know just what I'm talking about. That baseline shot before maybe hail damage comes through can be so valuable when it's time for that insurance claim. So like Derrick is saying, don't wait until a disaster strikes, or don't wait until there's an anomaly. Start off with getting baseline imagery, record that mission, and then repeat it over time. And then the other thing that I'll add is it's great to know that if a client is happy with a deliverable, you can just repeat that same inspection over time to provide consistent results. If you have a good mission set and the deliverable is good, why not just repeat that over and over again rather than every single time need to go out and get that same data? So this feature in particular, I'm really excited about. And then another thing we have to go hand in hand with this is the AI spot check feature. This allows you to highlight the areas of interest after an inspection to help improve the accuracy for future autonomous flights. So you're just getting a sense here in this video of the workflow of this feature. So you can see the operator is gesturing over the component that's of interest, and then on each repeat mission, the drone will try to focus up on that component. And again, it's all about delivering consistent results over time. Okay, another really simple and beneficial feature is the high-res grid photo. This allows you to capture a set of photos quickly and accurately. You can select an area of interest and the camera will automatically divide the area in a grid pattern, zoom in and capture all the images. This helps ensure there are no missing gaps in your image set. And I'll play this video and you can see it's pretty quick. So this allows you to move faster through your shot list. So what could have been maybe 4 days on site with a bucket ladder truck could be maybe 2 days with an Inspire 2 or a Phantom, but maybe 1 day with a Matrice 300. So you see how we can use drones to get a return on our investment, but we can also use the Matrice 300 to double down on that return. So let me play this video so you can see what I'm talking about. So essentially it's gonna just take that whole image, and rather than the operator have to one by one zoom in and get the shots and hope that they don't have any gaps, you know, and kind of reframe the camera and pan and tilt, which takes time, the software is just gonna divide it into a custom grid and quickly grab all the shots, allowing you to move on to that next asset that much quicker. Alrighty, the PinPoint feature, this is a really excited feature. And it's something brand new that we've never seen from DJI. A lot of times we just see like incremental improvements. You know, it goes from flying from 10 minutes to 20 minutes to 30 minutes, or, you know, 12 megapixels, 14 megapixels, 16 megapixels. This isn't an incremental improvement. This is a brand new feature we're seeing for the first time. So I'm really excited to share it. The PinPoint feature allows you to drop a pin on the image or on the map using the laser rangefinder. So you can mark a location so it's easy to find. And you can also view the latitude and longitude of the location. So this is helping to solve a major problem. Previously, the drone pilot may see an issue, but it can be hard to communicate the exact location. But now with the laser rangefinder, you have the exact coordinates of what you're looking at in real time. And I'll play this video. So you can see someone zoomed in looking at the soccer field, they dropped the pin, that's that green diamond. Now they switch to the FPV camera and they're just flying over to that pin. So in this example, they're using the zoom camera, looking for something, dropping the pin when they find it, and then flying the drone to that subject. Now you can see, you can open up the map view and see where the pinpoint is on the map. And you can also click on that pinpoint and see the latitude and longitude coordinates. So this is really powerful stuff. Mike, I'll throw it to you. How can you see this being beneficial for large-scale solar fields?
If there was, you know, some sort of anomaly or a broken module somewhere, you know, we can, like you say, pinpoint it, fly right over to it quickly and identify the problem. Call in the field crew so that they can isolate that one circuit to make it safe for, you know, repairs to be made. So yeah, very, very beneficial, I feel.
Yeah. Darshan, any thoughts on how you might use this on the infrastructure side?
Absolutely. You have large rail corridors, large a lot of road that needs to be covered, and if we have the pinpoint features, I think the work can be much faster and say we can get to the locations based on where the problems are. So in any large infrastructure areas where have your rail, road, bridges, airports, when you do a whole airport inspection, we're not talking about just the runway, but we have other so many features. It's miles of land. Those needs to be checked, both in a security perspective and also in a safety perspective. So, like wildlife mitigation and stuff. So you have endless uses, and knowing, dropping a pin in these locations and doing, and ensuring your team knows where the location, everything is. That'll be great. If all DJI could do is add a option to just send a text message and give them that coordinates. I don't know if that is there. If it's there, that'll be great.
Yeah, well, I can see some people from DJI are on the call, so guys, get to work. One thing I do want to add is if you have Flight Hub, you can broadcast the pinpoint's location in live time. So that's not quite a text message, but if you have DJI's Flight Hub, which is their, premium flight management software, you can start to share that location with others in real time. Another thing that you hit on that was interesting is I could see this being really beneficial for railway inspections. This plus the dual controller, the ability to leapfrog the controllers, you could cover a large corridor and drop pins where you see issues. I'd imagine that the conventional ways of doing this would take, I don't know, you tell me. So,
a long time.
yeah.
We have done operations wherein the reason we couldn't complete the whole mission was because of problems like this. It's when we talk about corridors, it could extend, again, just like roads, it could extend to like 15-20 miles. And when we try to if we are sitting in the back of a vehicle and flying this drone, that is what traditionally we do in the rail side. That is not the best or way to but if we have people positioned and we can pass on the system, we can ensure people on the ground are safe also, and at the same time we are keeping the aircraft in sight at all times.
Yeah, I see this just making inspections a lot quicker, especially in the railway example. So thanks for sharing that. Alrighty, here it is, dual control feature. Derrick, you want to tell us what's going on over here?
Yeah, so there's actually a couple of different things that are exciting about this. This is one of my favorite features, but we have a drone that can go up to or past 9 miles away, and we're going to be able to do inspections, long pipelines, different things. We're going to be able to hand off that drone and complete that inspection, and even daisy chain our pilots and visual observers down a long path. We could go 30, 40 miles if needed, and continually just moving our pilots and VOs down the chain. Keeping the drone in the air the whole time and gathering that information. The other thing that we can do is having the pilot and the slave controller actually controlling the camera. So you could have one pilot that's actually just flying the aircraft and another pilot that's running the payload or running the sensors or the camera and gathering that information. So, and they're communicating back and forth. So to have a dual controller, we're passing this drone off and actually using the value of it, the fact that it can go as far as that it can stay in the air as long as it can. Now we're actually able to use that technology and pass this drone down for, all the way down this pipeline and wherever we're going.
That's a good point, Derrick. And with the ability to do just a traditional pilot and co-pilot mode, like a pilot and a camera operator, you can combine that plus the live mission recording to really get a nice return on your investment, because the first mission you do with 2 pilots, one person safely operating the drone, maintaining line of sight, the other person with their head buried in the monitor, getting the shots that they need. And then you can repeat that same mission, but the next time using only a single pilot. So it's not hard to see how you could get the return on your investment just by using that feature right there. So thanks for sharing that. And yeah, this is the first time I've seen the advanced dual control feature, and I know I'm excited to get out there and test it myself.
And something to add, Mark, something that is a safety concern, which which this can help out in a big way, is especially when you're monitoring, like we have a highway construction or something, and you're monitoring highways. You have those roads in between, which the vehicle or the pilot has to cross that. And at times, what happens is we just have to keep the aircraft up in the air and then shut the camera, and then basically wait to cross the road, because there are moving vehicles, there's a stop sign, there's a lot of things that are beyond our control. So in those type of situations, in the past, what we have done is just kept it up in the air or shut the camera, then cross the road, which could take a minute to 2 minutes, and then when you cross the road, switch it on again and move ahead. So this is where having that pass-on feature will be a great safety solution for us.
Yeah, nice. All right, we also have this new Smart Track feature. I just want to show this off. It's an example of how powerful this drone is. This feature seems like it's more geared towards public safety applications or towards traffic management, or maybe like marine or harbor applications. Essentially, in this feature, the gimbal can automatically detect and follow an object such as vehicles, persons, or boats. One nice thing is that the drone stays stationary while the 360 gimbal and the zoom lens track the object. And the subject's position can be displayed on the map in real time, thanks again to that laser rangefinder. So I'll play the video. You guys can let me know what you think. So you see it's locked onto the car. One thing worth noting is this is a really hard shot to pull off manually, because once the car passes in front of the drone, you need to start to yaw and follow it, and it can be hard to keep track of the car, let alone do it so smoothly. And once you lose track of the car, it can be hard to regain that that track afterwards. So this is a hard shot to pull off manually. DJI is making it really simple.
And another thing, Mark, that's going on here that we haven't mentioned is the zoom camera is actually running itself, meaning as the car gets closer, it's zooming in, and as the car gets further away, this camera is zooming out, keeping a track and keeping that car in frame. So that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, that is. And another powerful thing about it is you can see there on the left side, it's displaying the longitude and latitude coordinates of that subject as it's moving. So I'm not sure what the exact specific use case would be there outside of public safety or traffic management, but I want everybody at home to be aware of that and start thinking of how they can incorporate that into their workflows as well. And again, it all comes back to that laser rangefinder is giving us the ability to see latitude and longitudes for the first time from DJI. All right, now we have the primary flight display. DJI has introduced this all new display. This has your flight vector, wind speed, your height above sea level and above ground level. And in this video, you can see the pilot is using the flight path vector to navigate this tight area. The vector basically shows you, that's that circle in the center here, is showing you where the drone will go in its current trajectory. We also have the new and improved compass rose here at the bottom. This is showing you different obstacles as they enter into the obstacle avoidance view. So you can start to see where those obstacles are and navigate safely. Darshan, I know you have a manned aviation background. Any thoughts on this flight display? It certainly seems to have roots in manned aviation.
Sure. So, I would say the good and bad about it. The good part is that you have more, situational awareness when it comes to, closed areas, and at the same time, you are able to now scan everything in front of you. So it, for operations where you are to ensure safety and where you have limited space and everything, this is going to be really useful. With any flight display in the manned or unmanned side, people have to now start learning how to scan smartly, because you can get carried away with just looking at a specific function, and you may lose sight of the other stuff. So in manned aviation, we have a smart scanning method, and they say not to scan look at something for too long, because then you lose the focus. So good and bad about it, and end of the day, this is really good when it comes to making operations more proficient and more safe.
Yeah, and one thing that is worth noting is you can go with an HDMI cable out of the controller and view this on a monitor on a clean display. So I know some feedback we've heard from users has been like, oh, it's a little bit too much, and I'm trying to like inspect the roof, but I'm having trouble seeing through this. So just keep in mind that there is a way to bypass some of this noise on the monitor, and it's kind of like you're saying, you need to make sure that it's not distracting you.
Yeah.
Alrighty. I wanted to include a moment for any final thoughts before we get into the Q&A for you guys. If you have any final thoughts on using the Matrice 300 for infrastructure, energy, or AEC style inspections, as well as any final thoughts on the UAS industry in general. Mike, I'll start with you.
So yeah, with respect to how this can be applied in the solar inspection industry, very excited for this new technology. I think it's going to make a lot of the operators and the pilots more efficient out in the field. Again, like I've been saying all afternoon, our window of opportunity is already narrow to begin with, but to have all of these features, this technology in one small compact package, it's going to be very exciting to get this drone up in the air and use it to its full potential.
Yeah, well said. Thank you. Derrick?
Yeah, so I like all the situational awareness that heads-up display provides. We didn't mention it, but there's shows you on the screen where home is and how far away that is. We know wind direction when we're flying, which would be important whenever we're flying, but gives us that ability also. The fact that we have all this technology built into one payload is incredible, and we have the ability to actually use our rangefinder and actually measure how high a certain subject is. We're gathering information that way. We have built-in redundancy over and over, and that's increasing our capability and decreasing our liability. And this aircraft comes at a really good price, so I'm excited about it, and I'm excited to go out there and use it, and I'm excited for others to be able to hear what they can do with it also.
Nice. All right, last but not least, Darshan, final thoughts on the drone or the UAS industry in general?
So, with emerging technologies entering the drone space, you have AI, you have automation, and all these all together is going to make operations safer. You're going to work with big data, and when we work with big data, we want to make sure the data is good, and there's easier way than just having a lot of people do these operations. So AI is going, integrating AI into this is a smart way of moving forward, but also looking into sensors. The industry, gone are the days where you build a technology and try and sell the capability to the client. Now you have to take the client's opinion, what they require. So you have your large companies, your mid-sized companies that are doing these operations, getting their feedback. So it shows that the changes that are come in the new technologies in the DJI space is taking feedback from the industry, and it's not just scattered in US, or it's a worldwide feedback. And I think as this grows further, we will see more industries, more companies being influenced by this approach. End of the day, like I said, it's the client that has the specific need for it, and if that need is addressed, I think this this industry is moving at a very good and very safe pace.
Gotcha. Well said, and thank you for your insight. All right, so we have a special offer for today's attendees. With COVID changing the way that we're able to train in person, we're now offering live video conference training with all Matrice purchases. An expert instructor will cover all the information you need for setting up, operating, and maintaining your M300. And we'll also discuss the best practices for your specific application. Then, when it's safe to train in person again, we're offering a 50% discount on in-person training for anyone who attends this webinar. If you're interested, just contact sales at DSLR Pros. We had a couple of questions from our guests, which I'll run through. First, what ranges are available for the radio controller? I'll take that one. This is going to be 2.4 or 5.8 gigahertz. Will you be able to share this deck? Yeah, I can share the deck, and also we're going to put the recorded presentation on YouTube, so we'll send that to you, to everybody as well afterwards. Peter with a great question. Can pins be can pins be dropped on the pre-programmed mission plan? And the answer to that is yes. So you can go in there and drop in your latitude and longitude measurements, and then a pin will show up on the app. And then you can either fly to it or just have that pinpoint be there. So that's a way to reverse engineer this. Is this good for broadcast TV towers? Robert asked that question. Definitely it will be, and that's two reasons. One is you're going to have the ability to use the zoom lens to maintain a healthy standoff distance so you won't get so close where you'll have signal interference. And two, if that's a big concern, it's going to also be offered in an RTK version, which will help mitigate some of those interferences. Is it possible to send me some images, thermal and RGB for my analysis? 100% yes. And you can also go to DSLRPros.com/blog and you'll see some sample images we posted there. And a couple of people asking price. DJI has a strict pricing policy where we can't share the prices publicly. However, if you email sales@DSLR Pros, we'll reply back right away with pricing to you privately. Check out our YouTube channel. We just released a new video with a ton of sample footage from the H20T. A big thanks to Darshan, Mike, and Derrick for joining us for this. Also, I want to thank DJI. They've been extremely supportive since the launch of this program and have been a great partner, providing us with a ton of resources. And again, my name is Marc Flamm, and thank you for attending this webinar. Have a great day.